Hello, my name is Nathaniel Nelson, and I'm a programmer. A couple months ago, I discovered Linux, and I've started using it for all of my programming because I discovered that I really enjoy using the bash terminal because it's a really efficient way of getting things done with your file system, and it allows you to write scripts which automate a lot of the things you do while programming, so you don't waste as much time repeating the same steps over and over. One thing I've discovered is that I can use GitHub Gist to store my bash scripts and then use a bash script to clone those gists and install them so that I can easily use them as system commands in the bash shell. And that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do. So I'm assuming that you have a GitHub account and Git installed on your computer, and that you have probably used Git at least a little bit with some of your projects, that you're familiar with cloning, pulling, and committing to a Git repository. And if you've never used GitHub Gist before, I'll explain how to do that. I'm going to try to assume beyond what I just listed as little as possible about your work environment and experience. That said, you're going to probably need to have a computer that runs a Unix operating system, so you could be on a Mac and probably follow along really well. Or if you have any other Linux distro, that would work as well. I'm using Ubuntu Linux because I tried a couple of them out on virtual machines, and I found that Ubuntu was the prettiest and fastest distro that I tested. So that's what I'm using. So once you have that, find your terminal or your terminal emulator on whatever computer you're using. You're going to need access to your bash terminal. You're going to need some kind of a text editor, and you're going to need a GitHub account and Git. So yeah. So if you go to gist.github.com and you log in, this allows you to make new gists. And a gist is just a code snippet, or it could be multiple code snippets, but the point of a gist is that it's something that's smaller than a repo. Like, you're not going to use a full code repository because you just have one snippet of code that you might reuse and you want to have access to, so you make a gist instead of a repository. So I'm going to start by making a test gist, and I'm going to call it test script because this is going to be a bash script, and we're going to clone it and use it as a bash script. So I'll make it really simple. It'll be something like a hello world script. And then I'll create a public gist with just that simple script. And we'll see if we can get it cloned onto our computers and installed as a script that we can run from any point in the terminal. So, and I'll explain how that works right now. So when you type a command in your terminal, what that does is your computer is searching your path environment variable, which you can view if you type echo and then $ and then path in all caps. This is your path variable. What it is a list of file paths where you're storing the binaries, which are the scripts and the commands and the executables and all that you're running when you type a command. So when you type git, it's searching, and somewhere in your path environment variable, your computer is finding the git executable and running whatever command you use git with. And it's the same with any other kind of application that you run from the command line. As long as it's somewhere in your path environment variable that it can find, then you're going to be able to run it. So when you write your own scripts, if you put them somewhere that's not on your path environment variable, you're going to have to type the /, and you're going to have to be inside the directory where you put it. So, for example, if I have a script in the music directory, not that I ever would, I would have to type cd music, and then I would be inside the music directory, and if I had a script in there, I would have to type /, and then test script in order to run it, because it's not on the path. But I could just add the music directory to my path environment variable, and then from any directory from the terminal, I could just type test script and run it. So what I'm going to show you how to do is create a folder where you're storing your gist scripts, and that's going to automatically you're going to be able to use that to automatically clone a new gist, and it's going to install it in that folder with execution privileges, so that you can just run it from any point as a script, which I found to be really useful, and I use it a lot. Every time I create a script that I want to reuse and use on all my computers, I just put it in a gist, and then I can install it easily and use it anywhere. So the first step is you want to make in your home directory, which when you open up a terminal, you should automatically be in your home directory. You want to make a bin folder in there where you can store all these scripts. And the reason I do that is because you don't want to put it in one of your default system bin directories, even though you could. You want it in your own folder where you're putting only your own scripts, so if you decided to delete all your scripts, you could just delete this bin directory. So go to your home directory, and if you don't already have one, you might. It just depends on your system. Type mkdir bin. And what that does is it's making a directory in your home directory called bin. And then if you type ls to list the contents of the directory, you should see bin wherever in its alphabetical order. Then if you want, you can type cd bin, and then you're inside bin, which should be empty if you type ls. And if you look once again at your path environment variable, I've done this before, so my environment variable already contained that bin directory that we just made, but yours might not. And if you look at this path directory and you don't see it, what you need to do is change the bin environment variable. So all you have to do is type path equals, then type $path, colon, and then /home/ and then your name. Or if it's not in the home directory, you need to type the path to your home directory, and so in my case it's home/Nathaniel/bin. And then if I type echo path and print it out again, what I see is all of these directories separated by colons, and at the end we have this. And you can see that in my case it's been repeated because it was already there in the first place. At some point I'm going to have to go back and remove that. So because I just don't know what kind of errors could happen if I kept a repeated path in that environment variable. Probably nothing, but it's worth fixing it. So yeah, so now what you should have at this point, if you're following along, is a directory in your home directory called bin. It should be empty, and your path environment variable is going to have the path to that bin directory, so that any script you put in the bin directory, if it has execution privileges, is going to be able to be run from the command line. So let's test that out. Cd bin, and then I should mention that as my text editor I use Vim, which if you've never heard of Vim, it's run completely from the keyboard and it runs inside your console, so it's pretty useful and I really like it. But at this point what you can do is, if you're not using Vim, if you have a different text editor that you use, open up your file manager or your Finder on a Mac and find that bin directory, and just however you do it, make a new file in there and just make it a text file, and then follow along with your own text editor. So I can do that all from the console myself. So what I'll do is, once I'm in the bin directory, I'll type vim test script, and that puts me in a new text document. So don't worry about how I'm editing this file. Vim's pretty quirky and not like many other text editors, but all you have to do is type the same things I'm typing if you're using a different text editor. So all I want is the text editor is, I'm going to type the same hello world that I initially typed into the gist, then I'm going to save and quit. So in your bin directory you should have a file called test script, and it's just a text file that says echo hello world. And so it's in our path environment variable, so theoretically I should be able to just type test script and have it work, but it won't, and the reason is it doesn't have execution privileges. So you're going to have to type chmod +x test script. And what that does is gives that script permission to run when you invoke it from the command line. So then if you type ls, it'll appear in green, which means everything green has execution privileges. Then we try again, test script, and it says hello world. So any script we put inside that bin directory, as long as we give it execution privileges, will run just fine. So I'm going to delete the test script, rm test script for remove, and now we have an empty bin directory once again. So next what we're going to do is we're going to write a script that can automatically find a gist that we've created, clone it, and then copy those scripts and give them execution privileges. So essentially we'll have a one-step process to install a gist as an executable script on our computer. And that's a pretty powerful thing, and I'll show you how I do it in just a second. So open up another script file, which should just be a text file, and I'm going to call it install gist scripts. And the reason I call it just scripts, plural, is because a repository or a gist can contain multiple files. And in that case, what I want to happen is each file is going to be considered as a separate script, and then they are all cloned, all copied, and they each get execution privileges. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So it's the best practice when you're writing scripts like this to start them with a comment, a number sign followed by an exclamation point, and then the path to the interpreter of the kind of script you're writing. So if you're writing, as we're writing a bash script, so you would write /bin/bash, and that signifies to your computer that it's a bash script, and when you run it, it's going to treat it as a bash script. I just showed you in the first script I was missing this line, and it worked just fine. So it's just something to consider, and you should probably include that in every script you write. Alright, so first what we need to do is clone this gist, and I'm going to start with the test script gist because that'll prove that the system works. So we're going to type git clone, and then we want this URL. So copy that into your clipboard, paste it into the script, and so if we left the script like this, it's going to work. But the problem is not every gist has that ID. This is the specific part of the URL, that 038C. That's going to be different for every gist you write. So you want your script to be able to take in that as an argument so that you just specify that ID and it'll take that gist and clone it for you. So, but I'm going to leave it like this for now. Fix things later. So once it's cloned, what's going to happen is we're going to have a folder inside bin that's called 038C86 whatever, and inside that folder there's going to be one file for every file in the gist. So we're going to have inside bin a folder, and inside that folder test script. But since that folder, the second folder, isn't going to be in our path environment variable, we need to create a system link in the bin folder to that test script. So I'll show you how to do this, but first let's save the script as it is and run it and just show that it works and show you what happens when we run it. Install gist scripts. So what, here's the folder that I told you about, and inside it test script. But test script is missing its execution privileges, and it's also not where we need it to be. So the next step would be to create a system link inside this folder to test scripts and give that system link execution privileges. And that would turn test script into a system-wide terminal command. So yeah. So we'll go back into our script and we'll write the next steps. The command to create a system link is ln And since we want to create the system link in the directory that inside the bin directory, first we're going to have to type cd bin. This little tilde slash is shortening the file paths. What it means is the home directory / bin. And that's why I told you to put the bin folder in your home directory, is because now we can access it using the tilde. So this cd is going to put us inside the bin directory, and then ln is going to create a system link in the bin directory from inside 038c, and I'm just going to copy and paste that because it would be crazy not to. Alright, so that's the complete folder name. Just copy and paste that in your text editor, and then that / test script is going to create a system link inside bin to that. And every time you update test script inside the folder, the system link out here is going to have the same changes, which is going to come in handy later when we're treating this folder as a repository and updating scripts after we've initially installed and written them. So the next step is +x, giving the execution privileges to the script that we just created. And so if we delete this folder and run install gist scripts again, what we should end up with, you'll see in just a moment. Alright, we have test script. This is a system link right here. We have test script in here as well, and this should have execution privileges. So to test that and see if we did it correctly, we type test scripts, and something's not working. Oh, test script. Hello world. So everything works fine. So the next thing is we want to fix install gist scripts because it's specific to the test script that we just wrote. But I want to point out right now that this test script and the test script that we have here is the same one that we put into GitHub at the very beginning. So any script that you write, at least in this gist, because we haven't made it universal yet, anything that we change here is going to also be reflected when we use install gist script. So now let's make it better. When you're writing a bash script, if you want to take an argument to your bash script, the way you do that is by accessing the variable with the name of 1, 2, 3, on and on and on. So the variable of $1 would be the first argument value that's passed to the script. And so the way I've set it up is that the gist ID is going to be the first argument. And so we can replace this 038c with the value of gist ID. Like that. And then if we go edit this as well, we also want that to be the gist ID. And then test script is not going to be the file name for every gist that we write. It could be anything. So we're going to put that little asterisk, which is a wildcard. So every file from the gist is going to get a system link of its own, and they're all going to get +x for execution privileges. And actually, I want to do this differently. Instead of giving +x to the system link, I want to give +x to the original file. I think this is how I've done it, so let's try it and see if it works. So if you remember, gist ID is going to be the folder where they all are, and so, sorry, just moving things around. What this should do is first enter the bin folder, then this also needs to go first. First enter the bin folder, then clone the gist into a folder with gist ID, then go inside the gist ID folder, give every file execution privileges, and then create system links in the bin folder. So that might be confusing, but I'll show you just how cool it is right now. So we're going to delete I'm using the terminal and a wildcard to delete that folder with the gist in it, and then I'm going to delete the system link. And so now we just have install gist scripts. So we're starting from scratch, and instead of taking the HTTPS clone URL, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the link at the top and grab just the ID. So every time you want to install a gist script, you're going to go up there and grab the ID, and then we'll start this in our home directory just to show that it works from anywhere. Install gist scripts. We're going to paste the ID, and if all goes as planned, we can now go into bin and see that our test script is there installed with execution privileges. Then if we go out of bin, we should be able to type test script and hello world. So that's everything, but now I'm going to test it out with a few more gists and show you that it works when you put multiple files in a gist. So go back in there. We can do something pretty tricky here. If we edit install gist scripts, we can copy and paste the entire gist script. So copy that into your clipboard and go to gist and create a new gist and paste it. We're going to make a gist with our installation script. We're going to call it install gist script, and we're going to use this very same script to install this script. Just as an example, that's kind of a weird sort of circular installation that I don't know if there's any real reason to do it, but it can prove that the script works. So you can see that I've already made this gist. So what you should do is click create public gist. I'm not going to do it because I already have. And then go to the URL of your new gist, which should look like this. Actually, you can see that mine is a little bit different, but there's really no difference. Like either way it should work. If you want to come here and look at the difference in this script and try it out, I am 99% sure that there's no real difference in how they execute. But yeah, so take the gist ID, copy it, and then come here and it's possible that we should get some errors when we do this because we're going to create a duplicate of install gist script. So I'm going to rename my copy to temp and so now if you look in there, it's a temporary file. It's been renamed, so we're not going to have a naming conflict. So I should be able to call install gist script temp space and then the ID as the argument, and it's cloning, it's created the symlinks, and you can see that install gist scripts has been installed. Now let's try it out with a multiple file gist. I'm gonna this is gonna do, this one is gonna be called hello, and then I want to add another file. This one's gonna be called goodbye. It's gonna say goodbye cool world, and these two files are going to be a public gist. At this point, I'm going to delete the temporary gist scripts because the new one is a little bit different, but they should work the same. But if you've been following along, you'll probably also want to delete the one that you made locally, because the one that was cloned from the gist, you're going to be able to pull and push and change it, which is more powerful than having just a local install gist script, if that makes any sense. And by the way, if you have any questions about the video, if you find it helpful or unhelpful or anything, leave a comment or send me an email. I would love to hear about it, and if anything is too confusing or doesn't work, let me know. Okay, so let's take the ID of our hello goodbye gist. We're going to install gist script. Once again, I'm going to leave the bin directory to prove that these commands work globally, which is the whole reason we're doing it, essentially. Paste the URL, it's cloning the repo, and it's done. Now if I type hello, we get hello world. If I type goodbye, goodbye cruel world. So we can put multiple scripts in one gist and install them at the same time, and then they're automatically cloned and symlinked, and they have their execution privileges. So that's every step in installing a new script. And the advantage of doing this and doing it through GitHub Gists is that your scripts are on the cloud. You can access them from any computer. All you have to do to install all the scripts that you write is just copy their ID, type the command, and you've got it. You have your script with global access on a new computer, which every bash script that I reuse now, I do it this way because I find that it's really convenient and really helpful. So I think that is just about everything. So hope you enjoyed watching, hope you find this helpful, and let me know. And consider subscribing or checking out my website where you can see my games. And yeah, have a good evening.